Welcome to today's program. This is Dibia Wangu Chendo. I hope you're all faring well. And what about your family, your friends? I hope they are doing good. Well, you can as well invite them to always listen to Radio ADN New York. Today, we are going to talk about misconception about the snail. What you need to know as a spiritual person. I would like to enlighten you about the snail before I'll tell you why people have lots of misconception about it. Especially brothers and sisters in the other faith, the Christians, because sometimes whenever they see snail in their dream, they term it evil. They term it diabolic. They term it as a bad dream, something that must not be discussed or something that should be banished or kabashed so that they will be free of it. Well, the Almighty created all things. There's no doubt about that. So snail is a shelled gastropod because the name is applied to land snails, terrestrial gastropod, but the common name snail is used by everybody. We all know that it has a coiled shell that is large enough for the animal to retract completely into. If you have seen a snail, you will attest to this. You will know that once you touch its body, it will retract into its shell. Within there, it might just lie down and the shell will just be on the ground. When it recovers itself and feels that the coast is clear, it will bring out its head and shoot out its antenna. It's a very lovely sight to behold if you see a snail behave that way. So, that coiled shell is large enough for it. It comes in different sizes. When the word snail is used in this general sense, it includes not just land snails because we have varieties of them. It will talk about numerous species of sea snails and fresh water snails. So there are a variety of them. The gastropods that naturally lack a shell, they also have an internal shell. Well, those ones are called slugs, and the land snails, they have only a very small shell. You understand? Some of them cannot retract into that small shell. So those ones are called semi-slugs, all right? Snails have considerable human relevance, including as food items, as pests, as pets, as vectors of disease, and their shells are used as decorative objects and also incorporated into jewelry. It's fashionable, For those of you who visit the beach, you see all types of shell. We have seashell, we have snail shell that can be used as ornament. All right? So the snail also has some cultural significance that tends to be associated with lethargy. The snail has also been used as a figure of speech in reference to slow moving things. But in Igbo language, There is an adage that goes thus: Iloma ka ejune ji aga n'ogwu. It means you should attend to the matter quietly, easily, with a good disposition. Just like the snail that wets the ground as it crawls. All these have meanings. It has spiritual meanings. It's very, very significant. All right? The snail is the same or similar shape as the cochila. If you see a conch, you can imagine how the likeness is to that of the snail shell. All right? And also, snails can be found in a very wide range of environments. You can see them in deserts, ditches, and the abysmal depths of the sea. Although land snails may be more familiar to laymen, marine snails constitute the majority of snail species and have much greater diversity and have greater biomass. We have numerous kinds of snail that can be found in fresh water. So we can say it's an aquatic animal that lives in aquatic habitat, because most snails have thousands of microscopic tooth-like structures located on a banded ribbon-like tongue called a radula. The radula works like a file. It rips food into smaller pieces. So, many snails are herbivorous. They eat plants or algae from the surfaces with their radulae. Though a few land species of snails and many marine species are omnivorous, or let's say predatory carnivores. Snails cannot absorb color pigment when eating paper or cardboard, so their feces are also colored. So it eats as an animal. But once it comes to colored or cardboard, their feces will change color to show you the wonder of nature. So same thing is applicable to humans. There are some kind of food that you eat, it will also change the color of your feces. Have you ever drank zobo before? When you take zobo drink, you'll see that it colors your feces. So I think this can be likened to the snail chewing paper or cardboard. So there are several species, like I told you, of this snail. We have a lot of them. We have giant African land snails that grow to 15 or about 38 centimeter from snout to tail and weigh 1 kilogram. The largest living species of sea snail is Syrinx uranus. Its shell can measure up to 90 centimeter, that is 35 inches in length. Alright, and the whole animal with the shell can weigh up to 18 kilograms. So recently, the smallest land snails have been discovered in China and is measured 0.86 millimeter long. I'm trying to analyze snail for you, give you a little bit of history about the snail before I tell you why people have misconceptions about the snail. So many types of snail. And the snail makes decisions by using only 2 types of neuron, one deciding whether the snail is hungry and the other deciding whether there is food in the vicinity. You talk about that antenna. Me, I call it antenna, that long, that long pole on its head. So you need to know that snails have eating habits, and they vary They have so many species. Some snails feed at night. And why they feed? They feed primarily on decaying organic matter. Their diet include fungi, lichens, green foliage, worms, centipede, insect, animal feces, carrion, and other slugs. You know that some snails feed on other snails too? Yes, they do. Enwee inu a na-atụ n'Igbo si na azụ karịa ibe ya ononya. So this is applicable to a snail. It's the same way too. We have land snails, like I told you before. We also have fresh water snails. We also have sea snails. They are all eaten. They are all available in many countries. In certain parts of the world, snails are fried. For example, in Africa, Nigeria, our people, they love eating snail. So how come when they dream and see snail, they become afraid? They start kabashing. It's very, very funny. It's a very big delicacy and it contains protein. Snail contains a lot of things. People enjoy it as meat. You know, when it's fried and peppered, you hear of peppered snail. They serve it in restaurants. Even at home cooked meal. You see them prepare it, you know, during occasions, during ceremonies. They enjoy it. They munch on it. Then how come you see the snail in your dream, you become terrified? You become so much more afraid. And you start reading meaning into it. You become bothered. Why? Why is that? Well, let's continue. Maybe we'll find out why some people are like that. They become afraid whenever they dream and see snail, or they are packing the snail in their dream, or they are in the water and they are picking snail. It depends on how the dream goes. So the different kinds of snails will now make you know the one you see in your dream so that you can identify them. In Africa, Nigeria, in Igbo land, we eat snail, peppered snail. We use it in cooking. It is also medicinal. So something as wonderful, as glorious as a snail, why do people fear it? Why are they afraid? Why do they equate it to evil, an evil omen? Why? I've been pondering on this. This is why I decided to, teach about this. This is why I decided to talk about it. Let me allay your fears. Let me assuage your fears, all right? Snail is wonderful. It's a very precious animal. The shells are so beautiful. If you have a collection of snails, maybe those smaller, tiny, tiny ones, if you look at it, you will marvel. Recently on the internet, I think on Facebook, I saw a little girl that was so touched, so so unhappy because she mistakenly stepped on a snail. Such a lovely soul. She was crying. She was crying so much, very heart-wrenching cry that the mom had to video her, to ask her what was making her cry. She said she stepped on a snail. And her mommy was like, "Why are you crying?" She said, "Because she killed it." Such a lovely soul. Such a beautiful girl. She was crying so much. The mother said, "Oh, okay, look at another snail now. That means they are brothers and sisters." you killed one, right? She said yes. I said, okay, pick the other one and tell the other one sorry for killing the brother. And she did it. You have to learn one or two moral lessons from that video. Compassion, empathy. That is what I picked. Kindness, remorsefulness, that when you offend someone, you can, be remorseful about it. And very genuine when you are apologizing. That little girl taught me so much within a space of time. Within the few minutes that I watched the video, I learned something, and that shows you good upbringing, because her mom is such a wonderful woman to have raised a girl like that. I think she's either 3 or 4 years old. There's so much compassion in her. So she picked up the other snail and apologized to the snail for mistakenly killing the brother, and she promised to be she promised to be a friend to the surviving snail. It teaches us to be in tune with nature. This is an abstract to this discussion, to this teaching. But I want you to learn something from it, because I learned something from that little girl. I learned something from her mom. They taught us something with that small video. And everybody loved it. Everybody was wowed. How many children in this generation have such compassionate soul within them? How many still say sorry? How many people do still apologize? How many people, even if they apologize, their countenance, do they do it with so much remorse and contrition that they are contrite because of their action? How many of them in this world? How many people can still do that? How many people can still say, I am sorry, please forgive me? What can I do to make it better? How many? Well, I don't know. You should answer for yourself. All I know is that a lot of people consume snail as food, peppered snail. They eat it a lot. It's a delicacy. And they wash it down with beer. They go to joints, they hang out, They see it as food. Good protein. That is what they see it as. But that little girl that stepped on a snail taught us something. You can search for the video on the internet. It's there. It's still trending. And it was also a source of inspiration to me, even though I have already thought about the snail on my Facebook page, but I decided to use it for today's teaching, to emphasize more about it, even if I've not talked about the snail extensively like I'm doing today. I want to learn one or two lessons. The video was such an inspiration. So that is it. For us humans that are adults, we see snail as food. We consume it so much. So many people are now into snail farming. That is the physical uses of it. So many are into snail farming. They no longer have it as a pet. Of course, if you try having it as a pet here in Nigeria, people will look at you as if you have gone mad. As if something is wrong with your reasoning faculty. Like a weirdo, So majorly, it ends up in our belly. But when we see it in the dream, we become afraid. Why? Why are people so much afraid? Why are men and women so afraid whenever they dream and see snail in their dream? When it comes to food, eating it as food, nobody's afraid of it. They talk about how pepperish the snail is, how wonderfully prepared, how wonderful they served it to them. They talk about drinking variety of beer to wash it down. They talk about, vegetable snail, Some prepare it using vegetable. Some talk about using it to cook ofe egusi, any kind of soup. But once you sleep and you dream, you go to dreamland and you see snail in your dream, it becomes a nightmare. It becomes worrisome. Why? Why is that? Is there something that we should know today about why people are so tense? People are so worried whenever they dream and see snail in their dream. Yet people are doing snail farming. They are into snail farming. Why are they not afraid of snail when they are farming it? Why are people not afraid of snail while they consume it as meat? Why are they not afraid of snail when they use the shell for ornamental decoration? Why? Is it because snail is spiritual? Probably, because once they see it in their dream, also ata. They come into my inbox, they start narrating their dream. Dibia, please help me interpret this dream. I saw myself packing a snail. I was packing it and packing it. I became so afraid that, I was wondering, what is wrong now? It's like it's the spirit of stagnation. It's like a spirit of harassment. It is the spirit of evil. It is the spirit of demon. Something bad is happening. Something bad will happen. What? How? Where? I've gotten used to all this. I have to calmly tell the person to calm down. Can you narrate your dream for me? Give me detail. How did the dream start? How did it end? How did you find yourself in the water or river? Were you discussing with someone in the dream? Accurate details so I can be able to analyze and interpret the dream. It's a gift for me to be able to interpret dream if I'm in the right frame of mind. Because most times when people narrate their dreams to me, I have to go into my spirit. If there is a specific message, of course, you have to let the person know. But nowadays, what do we see? Once you oblige and interpret a dream for someone, and another person mistakenly sees it online, you become they start harassing you to interpret their dreams. It is a gift. Not everybody have that gift, the gift of interpretation of dreams. It's not everybody that has it. And mind you, because of some of us that are still into Christianity, the way they view dream is different from the way we in ordinary spirituality view dream. Or the way they interpret it, it is not the same as the way we do in ordinary. Yes, that is the fact. Because we are not the same. Even though we are brothers and sisters, there is something dividing us. We are along on a religious divide. Ordinary spirituality is not a religion, it's spirituality. Being in alignment with yourself, being in conformity with nature, So things about snails don't scare us. Why should it? When you talk about nature, is snail not part of nature? Don't you see it in the river? Don't we see it whenever it rains? We see it climbing the walls. We see it on the ground. We see it on the tree. Every nook and cranny, every within your environment, you see snails. So why won't we be in tune with it? If you are an ordinary adherent, there are certain things you see, and it is as natural as time, as natural as mankind, as natural as what the universe has bestowed and blessed us with. You are no longer afraid, because you know this is nature. That is what I don't understand about imported Christian religion. They misconstrue everything. They have this misconception that they have drilled into our subconsciousness over the years, over time, that is very difficult to unlearn, relearn, and learn again. Some are so steeped into it that there is no going back, because it is indoctrination from generation to generation. You are being brainwashed. You are told that snail is evil, is diabolic. You are told that whenever you dream and see snail, that calamity is about to befall you. But I have good news for you today. I am here to sensitize you. This is why Dibianwangu Uchendo is here today, to tell you about those misconceptions about the snail. Why should you misconstrue it? Why should you misunderstand what God has created for the Christians? For you to understand it perfectly. Once you say God, that is the one they understand better. For us, we talk about Chineke, Ekekerowa. What he created, what he made, very perfect. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful. Chineke kere ha niile. From time, it has to do with nature and the universe. So why are you always afraid? Why? Why do pastors and prophet and prophetess and other faith peddle such falsehood about nature, about what God or what their God created? But then they now have selective amnesia on some certain things that they can use to promote themselves. But the ones they feel like, oh, this is majorly found among ordinary adherents, they start criticizing that, they start demonizing it, they start kabashing it, and end up confusing themselves and their followers. Do you see now? That snail is as old as time, because it is an aquatic animal. It is a gastropod. It has healing abilities. It is symbolic. Snail is a totem. I want you to know today that snail is a totem. Snail is from the mariners. And when you talk about marine, you talk about the 4 elements of nature. You talk about water, land, air, and the other one, fire. So there are components that come along with all these elements. There are things you find in those different elements that are associated with nature. You cannot describe it. It is infinite. So why do they always castigate what they don't understand? I am not talking to you today to believe me wholeheartedly. You can do your research, because there is nothing that you cannot research upon to find out if this is true. You don't just believe everything. Do your own research and let me know.